That's it. We're pulling the plug. Aboard, Zach. Race is over. Bail out. What's gotten into him?
Hey guys, Alf here. I was going to cover this video a lot sooner, but I had other videos to do that were way more important. And I know what you guys are going to think. While I'm going through this, you guys are going to initially think that this is extremely low-hanging fruit. And it is. And sometimes you got to cover these just for fun, right? And it's really easy to debunk these, so it's just fun to do. And I thought I'd throw these in every once in a while. So here we go.
I like this quote in the Bible. It's mentioned in Job 12:7.
But ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds of the sky and they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish of the sea inform you. We all know that fish can't talk and the earth isn't going to tell us anything. So what is it talking about? We can gather information from these creatures and earth itself.
And they're what hold wisdom, and that what we should be looking for. Test these things, right? That's the scripture is different than most religions in that it tells us to test what's in it to be true.
Bible quotes are irrelevant to evolution. They have nothing to do with each other. Evolution doesn't try to prove or disprove the Bible. That's up to Christians themselves to figure out the Bible and what science says, right? Science doesn't care about that. But in the end, I found it funny that he uses a quote to talk about how animals will tell us how life, it came to be the way it is, which is exactly what scientists do when they study animals to come up with theories of how life came to be.
And that's what I find ironic is that Richard Dawkins says, we don't need evidence for evolution. We know it's true. So they just believe it. It's a faith-based religion.
Are you sure about that?
I've looked all over the internet for this quote. I've even found the magazine that it says it's from, but I can't read inside, so I can't verify what the quote says or its context. Anywhere else, I can't seem to find this, so I don't believe this quote is true. Here is what AI says about it, and it says that it can't find where he said this, so I'm gonna label this as quote mined unless someone can represent the actual quote and the context surrounding it.
But the Bible says, prove all things to be true and hold fast, which is good. So we're told to actually test things. And that's why we're so good at making these predictions.
Poppycock. Do you know what poppycock is?
So with that said, we could jump over to a lot of different things. But you guys got to remember that your whole foundation, the starting point of evolution, started off as complete lies with an agenda of all things.
So
if we look at Charles Lyell, his goal was in secret anyway. This is what they found in his journals later. His goal was to free the sciences of Moses.
Yes, Lyell did say that, but that shouldn't matter because whether you take Christianity out of science is a good thing because you want science to be tested unbiasedly. If you put Christianity in, you're coming in with a bias. So you should want that out. And if you were religious, then you would be confident. For instance, the person making this video, if they were extremely confident that what they believe in Christianity is true, then they should want Christianity to be taken out of science because science should show Christianity is true, whether we use it as a basis to study life or not. Right? Like even if you took Christianity out of science, science would eventually show through evidence that Christianity is true, right? So that doesn't matter. The second thing is Lyell is a geologist, and this is evolution we're talking about. So if you're going to talk about evolution being a lie, you have to talk about biology. There are parts of geology that do provide evidence for evolution, but that isn't necessarily the case. Evolution is mainly and mostly a biological science.
And the Bible actually predicted him a long time ago. Believe it or not, because he said the present is the key to the past. The Bible actually tells us that in the last days, people will believe the earth is continued as it was from the beginning. That's literally uniformitarianism, the very thing he pushed and what everyone believes today, which is just a pagan theory of evolution to begin with.
I couldn't find any evidence that Anaximander was a pagan, and in fact, paganism is a term invented by Christians, and this is 500, 600 years before Christ, so the word pagan wasn't even invented at the time. And paganism is mostly described as people who don't worship Christianity. So yeah, this guy didn't worship Christianity, but Christianity didn't exist in the time for him to practice it. So calling this a pagan concept is basically a smear. There's no evidence this guy was a pagan. And even if he was, it wouldn't matter because science works by evidence. So even if this was a concept created by a pagan, if eventually you can provide evidence and show scientifically that there's more evidence for this than any other possible scenario, then this would be a more likely scenario, regardless of how it was created.
He actually took this idea that there's 3 fundamental human types. There's the whites and the yellow people, and then the black people, all related to the chimpanzee, the orangutan, and the gorilla. And he said, if we push this agenda as far as we can go, we could prove that men came from the orangutan.
And that was proven wrong by science, as evolution doesn't say that humans come from orangutans. They say that humans and orangutans share a common ancestor.
So you notice what he did. He literally pushed this hidden agenda, and he said, let's see, now I got to get people to believe this. Now I got to get them suckered into it.
I'm going to doubt he said that without proper evidence or a quote that he said these things, because, this guy just kind of makes things up. But in the end, even if Lyell was lying and trying to pull wool over the eyes of people and try to lead them to think that humans came from orangutans, he would need to provide evidence of that, right? Or science wouldn't accept it, which is why we don't believe that now, and we don't believe that humans came from orangutan now, right? We would still believe that if he tricked people, right?
So what did he do? He went to the Niagara Falls. He went there and he started to catalog it, and he started conversing with people that lived there, as one of them in particular, which was a local geologist. And he said, how much do you think the water is eroding at that area? And the guy said, probably around 3 feet a year. What did he do? He went back and said, that's too fast. I'm going to slow it down. And I'm just going to say that it erodes at 1 foot a year. And I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody the math, because he didn't run any. He's not going to tell anybody about any of his science because he didn't have any. He just made it up and he lied to the public. And then later, the very scientist came along and said, why did he publish that? Because now we know it actually rose about 5 feet a year.
So doesn't the scientist stating this and coming to question this guy literally prove the point that you just can't make anything up and put it through science? This guy literally debunked his own story about evolution being a lie by showing that science debunks anybody who tries to come and spread a lie and doesn't provide evidence.
And it's completely the opposite of what he wrote, because he wanted to push the date back. You see, the Creation Ministries International, Dr. Henry Morse, said that Lyell did this to make the uniformitarianism age 35,000 years for the falls. So his goal and agenda to lying to the public was to get people to drop the Bible, which again takes you back to his first goal, was to free the sciences of Moses. He hated God, like a lot of people do today, and they need evolution to be true. So they just make up this story. They follow the story, no matter if it was a liar. And then they defend the liar. That's what's shocking to me, Donnie, is they'll defend this guy who literally made these things up and lied to them because they want to defend their belief.
Well, I wouldn't defend it. I would just say it's completely irrelevant whether he lied or not, because we test it anyway, and we'll see whether what he's saying is true to real life or not. And if it's not, then we'll, discard it as not being true. And if it is, then we'll throw it into the rest of the theories that we have. And then he also says something about, that people have to believe that it's true, but we're believing a story to be true based on evidence that's presented. If you didn't want people to believe that story, you thought another story had more proof, then present the evidence of that more proof that defeats the evidence of evolution then.
This is what's messed up, though, is Charles Darwin took Lyell's book with him, the Book of Lies, made up myth, and he took that with him on his journey. So that based his foundation off of it.
Fun fact, the guy who created the cell phone was inspired by the communicators on the first Star Trek show, which is a fictional story. So people can be inspired to create or discover things in reality based on an idea they got from a fictional story. None of that matters whether the story came from a lie, whether it's fictional. What matters is whether evidence can prove that the idea is true.
And that's where he was like, maybe deep time can be proved from my concepts. Basically, every prediction he ever made was wrong, except for natural selection, which he plagiarized from biblical creationist Edward Blythe and Patrick Matthew. And yes, this was actually known very well in the past, but has gotten forgotten over time because of this.
So none of this matters. Even if it was plagiarized, this still, again, needs to be proven and shown to be true. So even if you plagiarize it, it just means the other person that he took it from is correct about the theory. So it doesn't matter who presented the theory. In the end, you need to provide the evidence so that we could show whether it is a fact of life or not.
True out of his model, and everything else was in his mind came from a liar before him, which was literally, he just made things up. So that's where we'll go. I was taken over because he left.
No, that was great.
Once again, for the last time, evolution has evidence that needs to be debunked if you want to debunk it. Just saying that it's a lie and then not even addressing any of the proof or evidence is ridiculous. Just saying that people who came up with the concept are liars, or even if they were liars and just came up with the concept, it would just mean that it's amazing that they were able to make up something that ended up having evidence of being true. So if you want to call evolution a lie, this isn't the way to do it. This is the most extreme, lowest hanging fruit anybody can react to, and I'm doing it for fun. But the truth is, this isn't how you debunk evolution. If you want to debunk evolution, go to one of the solid proofs of evolution and debunk that. If you want a different idea to trump evolution to be the most likely scenario for life getting to where it is now, then present that with an equal or more evidence of that so that we can see that it is the more likely scenario. But right now, evolution has the most evidence. You have not debunked it, you just called it a lie and tried to brush away all the evidence, but you haven't even addressed any of it. So that's my video. Total low-hanging fruit. I thought it was hilarious. He challenged me on Twitter, and as if this was a difficult video to debunk. He also brought up Aaron Ra and said that he debunked him. I'm not a fan of Aaron Ra. I don't like him at all. But I might go over that video and see, because this is really low-hanging fruit, and it might be fun to respond to these every once in a while. All right, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.